Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is June the 5th. We are a few minutes past 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. I hope you guys are doing well. It has been a minute and I'm glad to be back here in our live stream. Not sure how our microphone is working. If there is anything wrong with the live stream, please let me know and I will try to fix it if possible. Let me check here our chat window. It looks like we don't have any participants so far, but I do see a few people joining our live stream as we speak. We are moving our office in Rio de Janeiro. We are moving to a larger space. And for those of you who are in Rio de Janeiro, we're gonna have a brand new special place for you to visit and have a cup of coffee with us. All right, Daniel Ramirez, audio sounds good. Thank you, Daniel, for showing up and for confirming. Keithwell, all right, Keith, so good to see you here. Keithwell says, tudo bem, como é que você tá? As a tax resident there from USA, would one have to pay taxes on post-tax earnings like Roth IRA distributions? Keith, so it really depends on how your retirement account is structured. And we had some recent changes from 2023 to 2024. I haven't spent time to understand the nuances, but as far as I remember from the changes, like you wouldn't pay taxes on earnings unless you are selling the investment, right? So let's say if you have stocks and if the stocks are just there growing, in theory there is no taxable event. But if you sell the stocks, then yes, there is a taxable event and you would need to pay taxes. All right, that's one of the approaches. The other one, which it could also be applicable to your situation depending on the specifics. It's like if you have a bunch of transactions during the year, instead of paying taxes for each of those transactions, you would take a look at your final position at the end of the year, right? So these are two things I remember from the changes from last year to this year in terms of taxation. Now, for anyone planning, for a long journey in Brazil, we usually recommend some type of taxation planning. Many people, when they learn that you're gonna pay taxes on your U.S. income, they get really upset or concerned about moving to Brazil. But my recommendation is get someone to do a calculation or a forecast of how much you're going to be paying taxes, because in many cases it's not going to be as bad as you think. Okay, as you probably know, there is the reciprocity approach by Brazil and by the United States. And the reciprocity approach says that whatever taxes you are paying in the United States, Brazil is gonna try to accommodate the taxes that you paid in the United States, in which is the country where you're getting your income. So these taxes, they are gonna be applied as a credit to whatever Brazil would tax you, right? So in many cases, just a very straightforward example. I apologize because it's not related to a retirement account, but let's say if you get $200,000 a year as a salary, and your tax bracket is going to be let's say 25%. In Brazil, your tax bracket would be 27.5, and the difference is going to be just 2.5%. So for this very kind of basic example, more to illustrate how taxation would work, you would just pay the difference of 2.5% on the $200,000 that you're getting from the United States. So as you can see, like Brazil says, yes, if you live here on a permanent basis, or even if you've been in the country for over 183 days, yes, you're going to be considered as a tax resident, but Brazil is going to try to find a way to avoid double taxation. I hope that helps. Let's see who else we have here at the chat. We have the Provision Life. Welcome, the Provision Life. I don't recall seeing the Provision Life here, so if it's your first time, welcome to the gang. The Provision Life says, I am an American engaged to a woman from Natal. For those who don't know, Natal is the capital of Rio Grande do Norte. Rio Grande do Norte is one of the states in the northeast of Brazil, and it's right below Ceará. Ceará, as some of you may know, it's a major destination for foreign citizens. Rio Grande do Norte and Natal as well, we have a large real estate transaction happening as we speak in Rio Grande do Norte. It's big and it's complex because paperwork usually is not ideal in those states, and it does require a lot of work. But going back to the Provision Life, I'm American engaged to a woman from Natal. I'm planning on getting married in Natal in September. What are the proper documents that I will need to be married in Brazil, also apostilled in Portuguese? All right, so provision. The first thing I want to tell you is that the rules for the documents that you're going to need to provide, they are somewhat similar across Brazil, but they do change according to the registry. Okay, and my recommendation for you is that you ask your fiancé to go to the registry and ask for their checklist. So every registry, they are going to have a checklist with documents, and if the registry is constantly in touch with foreign citizens, which should be the case of a registry in Natal, Rio Grande do Norte, they are going to have a checklist that is going to include documents for foreign citizens as well. Okay, so whatever I'm going to tell you here, and I'm going to tell you a couple of things, is not going to be as good as a checklist from the local registry, because at the end of the day, the local registry is going to go by their checklist and not by what I think it should be the case, right? So you go by the authority who's going to actually enforce the document requirements. Okay, provision. So this said, I can give you some examples of documents that are going to be a constant across the board. It does not matter if you are marrying in Rio Grande do Norte, Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, or Florianópolis. Okay, they are going to be a constant. One of them, of course, is going to be your passport. Passport is a given. Another major one, which those of you who have been participating in our live stream could most probably guess, is going to be the birth certificate. And the birth certificate is extremely important because it's going to tell the registry the names of your parents. Okay, like for a Brazilian identification purpose, a passport is not enough, because just your name alone, it doesn't mean much to the Brazilian government. They need to know your parents' names. Yes, your father's name and your mother's name. One common question we hear here, at our live streams, or better saying at our consultations, because it's more of a private matter. If the person doesn't have a father's name on their birth certificate, no problem at all, but you still need to present the birth certificate, because by providing the birth certificate, the Brazilian authority is going to know your mother's name, and they also going to know that there is no father's name on your birth certificate. And the birth certificate in particular, in line with what you just said in your question, is going to require an apostille, and this apostille must be provided by the state in which you were born. Okay, some people, they make a confusion. They say, well, I'm going to get in the United States, but I heard that in Brazil they issue apostilles as well, so I'm going to skip on the apostille in the United States, and I'm going to get an apostille in Brazil. That's not how it works. The purpose of the apostille is to validate, to say that the underlying document, it's a legitimate document, and nobody other than the state in which you were born can vouch for the document. So if you were born in California, apostille must be issued by California. If you were born in New York, apostille must be issued in New York. Okay, and just like this, the same concept is going to apply to the translation, right? Brazil wants to make sure that the translation is being provided by a trustworthy professional, and from the Brazilian government's perspective, this is going to be accomplished only by sworn translators. Sworn translators, they pass a thorough public examination and public tests in Brazil, and they are going to get a license. They are going to, be in the government's register for sworn translators. So when we say sworn translation, it's not just something that someone is going to, swear, or is going to, put a stamp. It's actually a very specific type of translation that is provided only in Brazil. Okay, so this is a major document. Another thing for you to consider, provision, if you've been married before, you're gonna need to provide the entire history of your marriage, including the license for the marriage, number one. Number two, the marriage certificate, right? First you get a license, and then you marry, and then you get the certificate, and then you divorce, right? In case you are marrying in Brazil for a second or another time, you're gonna need to present the paperwork explaining your prior marriage from the license stage to the divorce stage. And all of those documents, they are gonna need an apostille, and they are gonna need a sworn translation as well. Okay, provision. So just right there, I gave you some examples, but the main tip here is for you to go to the source, to the registry that's going to be in charge of your marriage in Natal, and ask them for the checklist. Another thing for you to know, you can pick a registry. The registry is going to be defined by the address of your fiancée in Natal. So if she lives in a certain neighborhood, this neighborhood is going to dictate, is going to specify the registry that is going to be the right registry to take care of your marriage, right? Again, you can pick, this is going to be based on the address of your fiancé in Brazil. Daniel Ramirez. Daniel says, my wife and I are Americans, but she has Brazilian citizenship. Thanks to her mother. What are the chances of getting a mortgage with a Brazilian bank? Our income is from the US. Saludos de Tampa. All right, very good place. I miss Tampa. First time I went to Tampa, I went to Busch Gardens, right? I hope there was over 40 years ago. I hope Busch Gardens is still alive and kicking. Daniel, so if you asked me the same question 10 years ago, I would say 0, okay? Because Brazil is very focused on Brazilian income. Like Brazil doesn't like foreign citizens when it comes to financials. So 5 or 10 years ago, I would say 0 chance. But nowadays, Some banks, they are trying to become, more international. So I'm gonna recommend 2 banks for you, Daniel. You have a pen and paper. I'm gonna tell you the names of the banks. You could try Santander, and you could try Banco Inter. Banco Inter, Santander and Banco Inter, okay? Banco Inter, last time I spoke with them, it was a couple of years ago. They had a specific program to try and approve foreign citizens purchasing properties, particularly in Rio de Janeiro, okay? And I'm not sure how this is working. I mean, if they're making money, they're probably expanding, the financing to other states. And, so the good news is that, some banks, they are opening up to mortgages involving, foreign citizens and income from abroad. The downside is that the interest rate will probably be, above market average, and they may require a larger down payment than usual. Okay, the standard down payment in Brazil is going to be 20%. So if your circumstances are that you don't have income in Brazil, you are a U.S. citizen, your wife, she's Brazilian, it may be very well possible that they are going to ask you for 35%, right? But that's still much better than having to pay 100% of the property. I hope that helps, Daniel. Connor Fry, since an apostle technically doesn't have an expiration date, would a birth certificate that was apostilled a couple of years ago be accepted in Brazil? Connor, welcome to the forum. Thank you for sharing this question. And I'm going to tell you that it's going to depend on the purpose of using this birth certificate. And I'm going to just give you 2 examples to make a distinction and explain why in some circumstances this document would be, outdated from an official application perspective, while for others there is not going to be an expiration date, just like you said. So if you are applying for the Brazilian residency through a marriage, okay, the only thing that the Brazilian immigration wants to know is your parents' names. So as long as this document is not like 20 years old, it is, let's say 5 years old, 7 years old, you shouldn't have any issue, because the authority is going to be able to read, right, like the translation, by the way, right, like they're going to look at the original and they're going to look at the translation at the same time, and they are going to just basically assess your parents' names on the birth certificate. So 5 years, in my opinion, should be good for immigration purpose. Okay, now if you're buying a property, let's say you're buying a property, you're buying a property in Natal, you're gonna be a neighbor of Provision Life, right? Provision Life has a fiancé in Natal, and now we have Connor, who's gonna be a neighbor in Natal. And if you are buying a property in Natal, or if you're buying a property in São Paulo, and if you happen to be single, the registry is going to assume that the birth certificate should be recent, or in other words, it shouldn't be older than 90 days. And the reason for that is because in Brazil, our birth certificates, they are going to tell us or tell the others if we are married or not. Okay, so going back to the Provision Life's case, once Provision Life marries with his fiancé in Natal, his fiancé's birth certificate is going to say she's married. Okay, so birth certificate, there's going to be a note, towards the bottom of the certificate, and this note is going to say that she's married. So anywhere she goes, people are going to know that she's married by just accessing her birth certificate, which, by the way, is very easy for anyone to access. In Brazil, it's not like in the United States. In the United States, there is a certain expectation of privacy. I would assume that in Europe, it would be even worse, because the privacy laws in Europe, they are much more stringent than the privacy laws in the United States and in Brazil. But in Brazil, because a birth certificate is going to give like this walkthrough in a person's life from a marriage perspective, they gotta be public, so everybody can tell, you know, the civil status, the marital status of a person. And now I understand that's not the same in the United States. In the United States, your birth certificate remains the same throughout your life. But not surprisingly, the registries in Brazil, they don't know how things work in the United States. And therefore, they are going to use the same reasoning that they use for Brazilian citizens. So whenever a Brazilian citizen is buying a property as a single person, like he's not married, she's not married, you're going to need to present a fresh birth certificate that's not older than 90 days. And because of this, registries in general, they are going to enforce this rule, even though it makes zero sense for citizens from the United States. So there you go. I gave you two examples. For immigration purpose, there is no time limit like the 90 days, okay? But for you to buy a property, I do recommend you to get a fresh birth certificate, because you don't want to be in that position of trying to educate the registry, right? Pretty bad idea for a gringo to try to educate a local registry, right? You're not going to have good results with this approach. So my recommendation is, you know, just play along, just follow along. If they want to have a fresh birth certificate, you will provide. I hope that helps with the explanation, Connor. D. Gibbs, hi D. Gibbs, good to see you here. Hi Mr. Oliveira, thanks for all of your knowledge. Thank you, Gibbs, for the support. D. Gibbs is always around supporting our live streams. Thank you so much. And we have Ronnie Dio, same thing, Ronnie. Ronnie is another constant presence here in our live stream. And I'm here just because of you. If you're not coming here, guess what? I'm not gonna have anything to say. So I appreciate. Ronnie Dio says, is asking, do I need an affidavit if I was never married to verify I was never married? It's gonna depend, Ronnie, on the registry, on the cartório, okay? But in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, is super common for the registries to ask you for an affidavit, and this affidavit is usually provided by the U.S. consulate. So there is a U.S. consulate in Rio de Janeiro, 5 minutes from our office, by the way. It's in downtown Rio de Janeiro. We are also in downtown Rio de Janeiro. U.S. consulate is a huge building, and you can just, you know, send an email saying, listen, I need to get an affidavit. You go over there, they have a template, you just fill out, and then a counsel from the consulate, they are gonna notarize your affidavit. Okay, that's in Rio de Janeiro. São Paulo, similar thing. In São Paulo now there are two separate consulates. The main one is gonna be closer to Shopping Morumbi. Shopping Morumbi is a major mall in São Paulo, and it's huge. It's like a 10 block consulate. I mean, that's probably the largest consulate I ever seen in my life. That's the U.S. consulate in São Paulo. Is almost like a city, okay? It's really huge. But same thing, you send an email, there is an email provided by the U.S. consulate. You send an email, say, I am a U.S. citizen, I need an affidavit of a civil or marital status. Like, different people are gonna use different names for the form. You go over there, fill out the form. It has a beautiful, shiny eagle on top. Consul is gonna sign after you complete, and this is the affidavit you're talking about, okay? Some registries, they are not gonna ask for the affidavit, but most will. I hope this helps, Ronnie, and good to see you here. Didi is coming back. Good to see you, Didi. Hello. My mother was born in Brazil. How can I obtain her birth certificate from Brazil if she has already passed away? Didi, it's going to depend on the state, and it's going to depend on the name, right? Some states like São Paulo, and actually pretty much most of Brazil, you can run a search in a state database. So let's say, Didi, if you know that your mother was born in São Paulo and you have her passport name, you can run a search, or like a service provider would be able to run a search using this information and potentially find her birth records in Brazil. Now, if you have an old version of her birth certificate, then it's much better, because the birth certificate is going to have the name of the registry in which her records are available, in addition to the records number. So with an old birth certificate, this makes extremely easy for you to get a new one. If you don't have a new one, and if she is in one of this kind of database friendly states, it's also not a big deal for a service provider to run a search and find your mother birth certificate's records. Okay. Bad news is usually when your parent, or the person you're trying to get the birth certificate for, was born in Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is a completely exception to the rule. In Rio de Janeiro, the registries, they do not integrate their databases just to make people spend more money. That's a very sad situation, because the registries, they are thinking about their own pockets instead of the public. And we have a bunch of cases here at the firm of people like spending years, not years, but several months, and sometimes yes, years, trying to find the records in Rio de Janeiro, because there is no database across the cities. So what we see happening is like the person has this memory of being born in Rio de Janeiro, I don't know, like in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, and when they try to find the records, like there are 16 registries in Rio de Janeiro, and like you gotta place an order for a search with each of those 16 registries. And unfortunately, some of these registries, they don't do a good job at searching the databases. So unfortunately, if you ask them, listen, did you search? They're going to say, yes, I did search. And you have no certainty that a search was reasonably completed. And then you kind of get in this type of crazy situation in which you are just researching and trying to find something and just spending money on that. So Rio de Janeiro, pretty sad situation that you can unfortunately find birth certificates with the same easiness that you would find if you are in São Paulo and other states. Okay, Didi, I hope this helps with the understanding. All right. Connor Fry, great response. Obrigado, senhor. You're pretty welcome, Connor. Moses, good to see you, Moses. Moses is planning for the purchase of real estate. As he says over here, can I purchase without doing a property title search for an apartment in a recently launched project that has not yet started construction by a reputable company like Cirela, because it's still virgin? Moses, I would agree, right? I'm not gonna sign you an affidavit that you're not gonna have any problems, but Cirela is super solid, super traditional. Okay, so I would say most companies in this type of level, they are gonna represent a safe transaction, and it doesn't make much sense for a title search to be done, because the only title or the only deed that you're going to be able to find during the development is going to be the deed for the land, right? Usually you have the deed for the land, then there is an amendment to the deed to explain that there is a building, then there is another amendment saying that in addition to the building being built, there is the incorporation of the apartments. And so the deed is gonna mutate, is gonna have, you know, different annotations on it until the apartment is ready, right? Once the apartment is ready, only then there's gonna be something called a BTC, and the BTC is basically an authorization from the public government saying that people can live inside the apartment. And only at that stage, a new deed is going to be generated for the apartment. Okay, so if you try to do a search, I mean, the search is not going to show the apartment until really later on down the road. And I would agree, and this is actually part of our advisory. Whenever people they don't want to spend money on an attorney, you know, to go over the transaction with them, they should try to, you know, work with a developer, a major developer, because, you know, they've been around for 10, 20 years, and the chances of them, you know, going bankrupt are not big, right? I would never say impossible, because, you know, it does not matter the country. Like, you see such things happening in the US, in Europe, in Brazil, so it's never impossible for a company to go bankrupt, or maybe to say more clearly, it's never 100% safe and guaranteed. But I would say I would feel comfortable myself in buying a property from Cirela without doing too much of you know, title search or deed search. Okay, Moses? Rony Dio, what about in Fortaleza for the affidavit? There is a consulate, if I'm not mistaken, in Recife, okay, and there is a good chance, Ronnie, that the consulate, the U.S. consulate in Recife, which is more like a section, you know, it's nothing comparable to the other consulates, but there is a good chance they would help you out with the affidavit. Another thing for you to think about, Ronnie, whenever you're flying into Brazil, now there are some reasonable flights from the United States to Fortaleza, most of them coming from Florida. But let's say if you're just you know, taking a regular flight using American Airlines, okay, American Airlines usually departs from connections are going to depart from Dallas. If you're traveling into Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo, which are the two main destinations for American Airlines, you could spend a day in São Paulo just to get the affidavit done, particularly if you schedule ahead of time with the U.S. consulate, and then you don't need to rely with you know, consulates in Recife. I know there was some activity from the U.S. consulates in Fortaleza as well. I'm not sure. Sometimes they are operational. Sometimes, you know, it's temporary. So I know there was a department of the U.S. consulate in Fortaleza. I'm not sure if it is active, but I'm almost sure that the one in Recife is fully functional. But again, if you are arriving in São Paulo and then, you know, flying out to Fortaleza, that could be an option for you. All right, Ronnie? All right, Connor Fry, Billy Gringo, I watch your videos often. You should do a collab with Mr. Oliveira. Haha. All right. Thank you for letting us know. Billy Gringo. All right, Billy Gringo. All right, I didn't know Billy Gringo is a YouTuber. Oh, well, we're going to reach out to you, Billy. Okay? Rest assured, we're going to reach out to you and we're going to consider a collab. That's really nice. Sharing. All right, I think I'm skipping some questions over here. All right, let me see the next one. Connor Fry, when sending money to Brazil for a Viper visa real estate, does the transfer have to be only done in a single transfer, or can it be several transfers to have less risk? Connor, I don't recommend you doing like in several transactions, because for every single transaction you're going to need to provide a currency exchange contract, and these currency exchange contracts, they are a pain in the neck for you to get from the bank. So if you want, it's enough of a headache. Like if you're doing many, that's not going to be fun. Okay. Now regarding the safety, right? Like you could use a currency exchange bank. I'm gonna share here a list of currency exchange banks with you guys. Okay, we do this as a service, as a paid service, and we do serve many clients per month, or actually per week. So if you need this service, we're very happy to assist. But I just shared a link, and in this link you're going to see a total of 176 financial institutions, and if you look to the right side, you're going to have the type of financial institution. My main recommendation is for you to never work with a currency exchange broker. I personally don't trust brokers just because they are too small. I'm not saying they are gonna steal your money or anything. I'm just saying they're small, and if they go out of business with your money in the middle of a transaction, I don't know what's gonna happen. Okay, so I don't work with currency exchange brokers. Now, if you look again to the right side, if you want to know, all right, Luciano, which banks do you use? Just search for currency exchange banks. Currency exchange banks, they are banks, so they are very well regulated by the Brazilian central bank, and in addition to that, they specialize in currency exchange transactions, and therefore they are going to offer better than average exchange rates. Okay, just make sure to look at the right side and then pay attention. You want to work with currency exchange banks, and if you come to us, we usually do we structure the transaction with the banks. We have a contract with banks, with these currency exchange banks. Some of them we've been working for decades, and when you work with us, we structure, we advise on the paperwork, we vouch the transaction, we give you the information in a way that you're gonna easily enter in your bank system in the United States. It does not matter if it is Chase, if it is Bank of America, Wells Fargo, any major bank, and then you're gonna be absolutely safe in terms of sending the money to Brazil. You're gonna get the currency exchange contract, which is key for you to apply for the Viper visa. All right, Connor, that's my recommendation. WS Bill, so good to see you, Bill. Bill has been with us since from the beginning. I really like to see Bill with us. It makes me feel good. All right, let me see what else we have. New Wave Brazil. New Wave Brazil, welcome to the live stream. Good to see you over here, and I hope to see you more times. If a gringo buys a property in Brazil and wants to rent it out on Airbnb, is there a way for them to lower taxes? New Wave Brazil. So when I see clients buying a portfolio, I usually recommend consider an LLC in Brazil for the purpose of reducing taxes. Okay, so this is usually good when you have more than a single property. The problem with LLCs in Brazil is that you're going to need to pay a CPA every single month. Okay, and in addition to that, unless you are married to a Brazilian, you're going to need to hire someone to act as the legal representative for the LLC. So all in all, you're going to be spending a bunch of money just to have this LLC fully operational and compliant with the Brazilian regulations. But yes, that would be, let's say, the most classic way for you to lower your taxes. Again, welcome New Wave Brazil. Happy to see you here. All right, Daniel Ramirez, Busch Gardens is alive and well. Thank you for all you do. All right, Daniel, so nice to hear about Busch Gardens, and thank you for participating. I appreciate your words. All right, Billy Gringo, my friend, YouTuber. I literally got my Brazilian birth certificate using a public phone when they still had them here in Brazil about 18 years ago. Yeah, that was a minute, right, Billy? So using a public phone, got it. That's very interesting. Yeah, 18 years ago, I guess, you know, internet was not all the rage, but things have changed a lot. I would assume, Billy, that back then you had like the number of your birth certificate record to more easily find it, right? And let us know, Billy. So are you from São Paulo? Are you from Rio de Janeiro, a different state? I'm just interested in knowing where you're from. All right, Connor Fry, great response. Obrigado, sir. Pretty welcome, Connor. Okay, now I'm going back to the list of messages. Okay, all right. Moses, can a buyer sign the deed of sale for the apartment without a lawyer? Can a buyer sign the deed of sale for the apartment without a lawyer? Yes, Moses, you don't need a lawyer, right? There is no legal requirement saying you must have a lawyer. I think, you know, like if you're spending either 700,000 reais or 1 million reais to buy an apartment, I strongly recommend you to use a lawyer, but you don't need to. It's not a must. There are the registries, right? Registries in Brazil, we call it cartório. And the cartório, they have an officer who is in charge of overseeing the closing. And I would say they do the bare minimum to vet a transaction. Like they ask for some certificates of clearance. However, even if they ask the certificates of clearance and the seller cannot provide, usually all that they're going to do is to say, listen, the buyer accepts the property without the certificates of clearance. So this is a somewhat, you know, like feasible transaction, but not advisable at all, Moses. And I know, right? Like it sounds like a self-serving advice for you to use my service, but I cannot tell you how many people are gonna come to us after things went south, and after your money is in someone else's pocket. It doesn't help for you to come to me and say, I'm gonna pay you, you know, this amount of money to go after the, you know, like whoever took your money, because as you may imagine, it's very difficult for you to recover money. So, you know, that's something we see happening all the time. People are gonna try to save money on the costs, and then they lose their shirt and they lose something else, right? I mean, to make a joke here with the shirt. Okay, so my recommendation, don't scheme, don't, you know, be cheap on the services. You don't need to hire us. Like we try to provide a higher end service here at the firm. There are other attorneys out there. As long as the attorney is reputable, as long as you see that the attorney, that they are doing what they are saying they're doing, you know, like you're free to hire anyone, Moses. But short answers is yes, you can sign deed of sale without a lawyer. Billy Gringo, I'm too shy on camera. Right, but Billy, are you a YouTuber or not? Like I thought you had a channel. Connor Fry, Billy Gringo, understandable law. All right. Okay, Billy, thank you again for participating here in our channel. Didi, thank you for the information. Obrigado, you're very welcome, Didi. Moses, I bought my first property using a lawyer. I have my CPF, which is the Brazilian tax ID. I was able to provide the documents to purchase the first one. I believe I can do the second purchase without a lawyer. Moses, your choice. Okay, we have people who are buying their fourth property with us, And yes, I know of people who are gonna just buy properties without a lawyer. It also depends on you know, like your level of comfort in the country, like, you know, your level of experience. If you have available time in your hands to do some level of legwork in terms of checks, and you know, our clients usually they appreciate that we provide a turnkey service in which they basically pay a fee and we handle everything else. Just as a reference, Moses, here at the firm, when we are serving a client in an all-inclusive type of service, we have between 300 and 400 activities alone, okay? And if you're gonna have like a realtor helping you out, sometimes they are gonna do 50 things and that's it, right? So what we do here at the firm, we try to compensate for the fact that there is no escrow and no title insurance in Brazil. So title insurance, it works like this. In the United States, if you're using a title insurance, you're buying a property from John, but the property is actually from Andrew. The title insurance, they are going to refund you the money. They're going to say, listen, you know, this title is no good. You pay the insurance, here's your money back. There is no such a thing in Brazil. So in Brazil, if you bought the property from Maria, and the property is actually owned by Clarice, you are out of luck. Nobody's gonna come to the rescue, right? That's the first thing. The second one, there is no escrow. So very concerning to foreign citizens when they need to send the money, and you know, the money is gonna go directly into the seller's pockets without you know, a deed of sale being signed, right? So that's another major concern, and we try to kind of handle all of those concerns, making this very seamless for our clients. But again, not mandatory, highly recommended though. Erin Lou Riggs, I am in Brazil and I have been married to my spouse over a year. We made the appointment with police in May, but nothing was available before my visa ended. All right, Erin. So I understand like you probably are out of status, okay? And yes, I mean, if you're out of status, there is a customary fine of $20 a day, 100 reais a day. And yes, I mean, just try to get back into compliance as soon as possible. Some immigration officers, they are gonna, you know, turn a blind eye and they are gonna let you, you know, secure the residency anyhow. Others are gonna tell you, well, first you need to pay your fine so you can come back here and get your residency, okay? But we do offer this service like marriage residency application. And exactly for this purpose, we advise on the documents required, you know, before the couple is moving to Brazil, or before, you know, like one of the spouses is moving to Brazil. So when the person arrives in Brazil, there is no such a huge time gap. And then we can apply right after that. And usually our clients, they are able to sit for the interview in 2 months after arriving in Brazil. So they do not exceed the allowed 90 days in Brazil. Okay, Erin, but I don't think this is a big deal. I just recommend you to stay in touch with federal police. And if it's gonna take you another, I don't know, 30 days, 60 days, what you could do, you could schedule an appointment. You could try to apply for an extension. But because you already expired the original 90 days, sometimes they don't like to give you. They could say, I'm not gonna give you an extension because you didn't apply before your time was up. And in this case, what they could do, they're gonna make you pay the fines, and then they're gonna give you 60 days to make your situation good again. So they're gonna give you like a 60 days period of time for you to figure things out after you pay the fine. All right, so these are some of the scenarios that could happen in your case. Like without lots of specifics, we can never tell for sure, but these are some things for you to consider. WS Bill, yes sir, Luciano, you are the best. I hope these people realize this. Thank you so much, Bill. You're very generous. And yes, we try to, you know, give it back to the community. We try to share knowledge. We're being very blessed by our clients. We have really great clients. Some of them are here in this chat. And I appreciate the words. And just, you know, as a reminder, if you guys are here in our live stream, and if you could like the live stream, this is going to help us reach more viewers. And this is also going to help people find this content later on. So if you haven't done so, please do me a favor and like our live stream. I appreciate that. Okay, so we are 10 minutes away from our you know, finish line for today's live stream. So we have room for a few more questions. Just a heads up, we're gonna be back here on the 12th. It's gonna be next Wednesday. Okay, I'm skipping a few weekends. I'm taking a break during the weekends, but probably in July I'm gonna be back, maybe even, you know, towards the end of June. I'm gonna be back to our live streams on Sunday as well. But as of today, our next live stream is gonna be on the 12th, which means next Wednesday. Okay. All right. We have Casey on tree. Welcome back, Casey. Casey's every now and then he, you know, showing up here. When buying Florianopolis, our properties deeded. How would I prove ownership? Is this also why some properties can be financed? Exactly, Casey. Have you watched our video by chance? Let me know if you watched our video about Florianopolis and the deedless, right? The properties without a deed, which are very common, unfortunately, in Florianopolis. You know, they have a bunch of busy paperwork, right? Like whenever you're gonna buy one of these properties, I guarantee the owner is never gonna say, well, I have a deedless property, right? Like they're gonna show up with this much of papers and say, look how much, you know, in terms of legal papers I have, but they don't have the deed. And if you don't have the deed, you have two issues, right? There is no chain of ownership. So sometimes there are disputes in terms of who's the current owner. Like there could be claims from past people. It's somewhat messy. This is one of the problems. The second problem is like banks, they don't want to touch this thing, right? Like, I mean, there are a lot of brave people out there to buy those properties. I wouldn't buy it. I don't buy. I'm very conservative. I just buy properties that are very straight in terms of documents. I don't touch, you know, like things that I don't believe in. I don't believe in deedless properties, okay? But we do have a very interesting video recorded with James Rocks. James Rocks, he's a realtor from the UK, but now he's a Brazilian realtor because he did pass the examination. He has a realtor's license and he works in the Florianopolis or Santa Catarina space. And I had a really nice meeting with James Rocks, and we spoke at length. I'm not sure, maybe, you know, 10 minutes just about this type of property. Okay, so if you just want to search, you know, come to our channel, you know, search like Florianopolis or deedless properties, and you're going to find this video. But I do not recommend, okay? I would recommend you to skip. Like, you cannot finance when you try to sell. People are always like concerned, you know, like, I mean, not a good deal in my opinion. Another message from Connor. There is an attorney out there advertising that people can get a Viper Truth buying a small island and also island in the Amazon. This seems sketchy and suspicious. Is this even possible, right? So I'm not gonna talk about the lawyer or, you know, like, you know, his representations. I'm gonna talk about my understanding of the regulation. There is a legal regulation supporting the golden visa, right? So and this document is public, and we actually have a translation. It was done by an intern. It's not the greatest translation ever, okay? But I'm gonna share over here the specific regulation, and then when you read the regulation, you're gonna see a bunch of restrictions on some types of properties, and rural land is gonna be one of them, right? So you need a property that has a deed, okay? You need a property that's urban, that's not rural, and it cannot be like bare land, right? So particularly land in the Amazon, it's something we never take as a case here. I mean, the documents for properties in the Amazon, they are not ideal, the documents and the deeds. And I don't know, like, I mean, whenever I see someone going after land in the Amazon, like, it's not a good match for our firm, and we're gonna decline almost always outright. Unless the person schedules a consultation, then there is no way for us to decline up front, but we never go ahead. Like, I don't like, you know, like, we don't like business, because like, if you're a foreign citizen, you shouldn't be trying to, you know, deal with things that are not super solid from a legal perspective, right? Like, I mean, you don't know the system, sometimes you're gonna be away, so we are very conservative in terms of the transactions we handle here at the firm. But going back to the point, okay, I just shared a link for the regulation, and then you guys can read, and then you're gonna decide if it is possible or not to buy land in an island, okay? That's up to you to reach a conclusion. The way we work here, the firm, we work by the books. We make sure that whenever you're spending a boatload of money, you're gonna get what you pay for. All right, I hope the link helps. William Frost, hey, good to see you, William. Very good to see you. Hi, Luciana, I hope you are well, and thanks for all the information you're providing. You're pretty welcome, William. Pretty good to see you over here. All right, Casey on 3, hit the like. Thank you very much, Casey. Yes, the likes, they do help a lot. I really appreciate. It's my type of tip. If you want to give a tip to Luciano, you go and click like. I'm receiving my tip, okay? All right, William Frost, do states in Brazil have their own laws like in the US? Is it a similar federal legal system? So, very interesting question, William. So no, it's completely different. Like, we say we are a federation, just like the United States, but it is substantially different. We don't have laws on the state level, even though we may have, you know, some level of regulations or lower class laws at the state level, but the most important ones, they are federal, right? So for instance, criminal law. In the United States, you know, Texas is going to have a criminal code that's going to be substantially different than the criminal code in California, right? Like in California, we hear like about the criticism. I understand, I'm not saying it's bad, but you know, it's a more permissive system than Texas, right? Like in Texas, if you steal a $10 a good from, I don't know, Walgreens, like, you're gonna go in jail big time for sure. And if you go like to California, and if you steal something that, I don't know, is $200 from Walgreens, it looks like there is a really high chance that this person is not gonna even face prosecution, right? And so like California, Texas, very different. In Brazil, criminal law is the same across the 27 states, plus the federal district, which is our kind of Washington, D.C. So criminal law, just one code for the entire country, okay? Same thing for, you know, family law. There is no such a thing as family law in São Paulo, family law in Rio de Janeiro. It's just, you know, the same family law across the 27 states plus Distrito Federal. In the United States, you have a family code for each state regarding, abortion laws and other, hot topics. And you're gonna see a huge variation in terms of laws when you go across the state lines. Not in Brazil. In Brazil, single family law across the country, right? Really good point. Thank you for bringing that up, William. Erin Lou Riggs, thank you, Erin. I hope to see you over here again. Casey on Tree, I will watch the Floripa video, looking for it now. Yes, Casey, if you don't find it, let me know in the next live stream, and I'm gonna get it for you, the link. But we do have some really nice videos about Floripa and the deedless properties, okay? All right, so almost getting to an end. All right, Moses, sir, what is INCC and what did they represent in the total purchase price when buying property under construction? Moses, INCC, it's like an index, okay? The INCC, it's an index that's gonna be used for the developer to update your payments. And not only the payments, sometimes the payments are going to be fixed, but the balance that you're going to need to pay to the developer is going to increase based on the INCC index, which is somewhat translatable as like the construction index. All right, Moses. All right, Erin, I have all the documents ready and we can pay the fine at the police. I'm just worried they'll make me leave Brazil. My visitor visa ends on Monday, but I couldn't extend because of appointments. Erin, rest assured nobody is gonna, expel you from Brazil. I guarantee. Just have your marriage certificate handy. The Brazilian immigration, they afford a lot of deference to family. So if you are married to a Brazilian, nobody's gonna expel you. Okay, don't worry about it. Again, worst case scenario is that you're gonna pay a fine, have your paperwork handy when you show up at Polícia Federal, and you should be able to work things out. Okay, if you wanted to schedule a consultation, then we can take a closer look at your situation and provide you with advisory. All right. Okay, so thank you all. I appreciate your participation. I'm very glad to see now we have like a consistently higher number of friends here at the channel, and I hope to see you next Wednesday. Again, our next live stream is going to be next Wednesday on the same time. It's going to be 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. And you guys have a blessed rest of your day.